Hello again. In the last video I left you with an evening view of the highest mountain in Ecuador, Chimborazo. And here is Chimborazo this morning. You probably won't be interested to know, but because the Earth is not a perfect sphere but instead bulges out at its equator, and as Chimborazo's summit is only 1 degree south of the equator, it is actually 2.1 kilometers farther from the Earth's centre than Everest, making it the closest point to the Moon on the Earth. Day 3, and we continue our journey towards Quito through the avenue of volcanoes. From Riobamba we travel up to the highest station on this line, Urbina, 3,600 metres above sea level. There we learned about harvesting ice from the glaciers on the slopes of Chimborazo. We then worked our way to Latacunga, visiting an Andean community at La Moya and being entertained by devils. So off we set from Riobamba to La Moya to learn about the Andean way of life. This was our guide who explained about how they lived. We are now about to move on to the highest station on the line at 3,609 metres above sea level. And I think this is a good point for me to tell you something about altitude and altitude sickness. The first thing I want to say, for people who are perhaps my age or older and have had heart problems or a stent put in, that insurance can be slightly more difficult to find. Watch what is allowed and what isn't in your insurance. The first company I went to, having filled in all my health details, I actually looked at the policy they were proposing, and I was not allowed to go over 2,000 metres. Well, Quito itself is at 2,800 metres, so that insurance was no use to me. So I started searching other companies, and the best I could find limited it to 3,000 metres. So I thought that would be a problem. I actually phoned that company up, and they explained to me that it's all right as long as I sleep at below 3,000 metres. And in fact, Latin Routes arranged the whole holiday so that all my hotels were under 3,000 metres. But I could, and I was allowed to go over 3,000 metres during the day. Now, moving on to altitude sickness, we were given on the train a herbal drink that they use in the Andes to combat altitude sickness. However, we were given one piece of advice on the train which I think I found most useful, and that was quite simply, think about breathing. Because we breathe naturally. But there I started to think I must think about my breathing and therefore take deeper breaths. By taking deeper breaths, you're getting more oxygen in per breath, and it does really help combat altitude sickness. In fact, to be honest, I did not feel anything for the whole holiday. No headache, no fatigue, no nauseous feelings. So that's my tips for you. And here we are at 3,609 metres above sea level. And the journey continued as lunch was served on the train. The city of Ambato was a refuelling stop for us, after which we were entertained by devils. The journey continued from Ambato, travelling north towards Latacunga. From Latacunga station we were taken by coach to a large hacienda in the countryside, built with pumice stone, which is much lighter than normal stone, as it was built on marshy ground. It even had its own chapel in its garden. And yet again, my bedroom was huge. To help dry out the marshy land, eucalyptus trees were planted. But unlike as in Australia, because this place is so close to the equator, the trees just grew straight up. The next morning, day 4, the coach took us to Cotopaxi National Park. Then back to the train for an onward journey to Tambillo to meet the gauchos before the final leg of the journey to Quito. Being up in the clouds, it was quite a mysterious place. This is an Andean coot. We had a walk around the lake. I'm not sure what sort of bird this was. This is an Andean gull, And at last Cotopaxi just appeared in the clouds. And so we begin the final leg of our journey. We stopped at Makachi for lunch at a very pretty restaurant. Which had a collection of dolls. Look out for gauchos on the next part of the journey. We are now approaching the outskirts of Quito. And it's raining. And here we are at Chimbakaya Station.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Thank you, sir. A very varied, interesting and exciting journey.